Hello, this is Greg Berzinsky for Beardbrand, and today I want to give you my 5 top picks for hairstyles that you can wear if you have a 5-head. Now you're thinking, Greg, didn't you mean 4-head? And actually, I meant 5-head. If you hashtag 5-head and go online on Instagram, you'll see about 80,000 posts. A lot of them are women, but there are a few men in there of people who have predominant foreheads. And in the case of the women, it is mostly from birth that certain people have just more space above their eyebrows before their hairline. And a lot of times this is not associated with any kind of hair loss, just the proportion of your forehead and your overall face. For guys, it can be for 2 reasons. You could have just been born with a predominant forehead, or it is a combination of maybe some recession that you're having in your hair. I'm actually probably a combination of those 2 things myself. I've made it through life to my late 50s with my hair pretty much intact, with the exception that I have seen my forehead travel up. And I actually like to think that God has a sense of humor, that I have a single hair on my forehead, about half an inch down, 3/4 of an inch down from my hairline, 1 hair that has never fallen out. So it's a marker hair. I know exactly where my hairline was when I was about 20 years old. It's because that single hair has never fallen out. So I can keep track of where my forehead's gone. So my hair has receded probably about a finger's length since I was about 20 years old, which is pretty normal. There are very few guys who make it through life without losing some of their hair, whether through male pattern baldness, thinning on the crown, complete baldness on the top, recession in the temples, and recession going back. Since a great many of the people who possess a 5-head were born that way, they've come accustomed to wearing their hair in certain ways as they've grown up. There's 5 ways that I can recommend that you wear your hair, and actually 2 of them are based on the premise that I don't like my tall forehead and I actually want to cover it up. So here's my 2 picks in that category of you want to hide your 5-head. So one of the most popular today would be a short textured fringe. You can see here in this picture, and there are a lot of variations, and let me tell you about some of those variations. My barbershop in the past 2 years has been showing a lot of this textured fringe with a very straight, bang. And in the United States, they're actually called bangs. When you wear your hair over your forehead, it's called a bang. For the people in the United Kingdom, I think it would be most likely called a fringe. The Men's Club Barbershop was showing a lot of this really almost severe kind of fringe, going very short across the top of the forehead. Now that length can be adjusted depending on where your forehead is. If you want to bring your forehead down a little, you would draw that line of that bang a little lower. I personally think this is a very youthful haircut. I liken it to maybe someone who was in their late teens, 20s in college, maybe in mid-20s. But I've seen older guys wear that haircut also. A variation of that haircut was made very popular, and our own Carlos got a version of that haircut, made popular on the TV show Peaky Blinders by the character Tommy Shelby. So he had the textured fringe coming forward, and throughout the couple of seasons you saw it grow longer, shorter, but more or less a fringe that was, I would say, on the short side. Both of these haircuts, whether you go really severely straight or more textured as Tommy's was, can be coupled either with longer sides or short sides down to skin, which you saw in the Peaky Blinders cut. All of these really kind of stem from a cut that would go way, way back. And we're talking ancient Rome, and it was called the Caesar cut. I actually wore that cut for a while in my 20s. And a cut that's actually been popular, throughout history. People have worn versions of the Caesar cut for centuries. But, all of these modern fringe cuts stem from that very cut itself. So that's the first one. The second one is actually taking this kind of fringe approach and wearing it longer. So actually wearing a full bang, covering the majority of your forehead. different ways to do that. Of course, you can couple it with shaved sides, short sides, but you can bring that straight forward, bring your hair straight down to meet your eyebrows, or actually parting it and swooping down over your face. Both of these ways, whether you do a short fringe or a longer fringe, are a way of concealing what you might think of as a negative attribute on your face. So covering up your tall forehead. So those are the two options. Conversely, you can actually choose to celebrate your tall forehead or your five head. My top three pick would be what I would call the Johnny Bravo, made popular by the cartoon character Johnny Bravo. And there's lots of people throughout, I guess mostly in the 20th century and in the 21st century now, who have rocked a version of this haircut. And it is basically a pompadour. So a pompadour is actually wearing your hair straight up and back, whether it be high or on the lower side. Option to that haircut would be to part it, parting it over, but yet pushing it back, but wearing it high. One of the things that this does, just like wearing your hair really high in the fringe could change the proportion of your face, wearing your hair high and tall can also change the proportion of your face. So if you have a really high forehead and you wear your hair particularly high, it can play with the proportions in a way that might diminish that forehead and bring attention to it, depending on how wide, how tall you make your hair. So that would be my third option on haircuts that you can wear. And in that one, you do celebrate the forehead. Another version of that, and another one that fully expresses the forehead, would be, I call this the Christopher Cory, but I would actually call it the classic slicked back gentleman's haircut. You can see here Christopher Cory celebrates his tall forehead by actually combing his hair straight back. When I see his hair, I think it's the look of a Wall Street investment guy, the look of a banker, the look of a professional guy. But I think back when I was growing up, my father had a haircut pretty similar to that, and he would wear his hair slicked back. And my dad worked in the mill. He was a blue-collar worker, and he would wear his hair like that. So it's not just an executive cut. But that is a haircut that almost any guy, any hair texture, if you have curly hair, wavy hair, with the use of some styling aids, you can get your hair smooth and push it back. Once again, that celebrates the tall forehead. That would be number 4. The 5th choice on my list for guys who rock a taller forehead or a five head would be to actually wear a version of a military cut. So you can see here, this is Howie Long, who is a former NFL American football player who is now a commentator. And he has worn this crew cut for probably 30 years. It's signature with his look, but as you can see, he has a pretty predominant forehead. So it works pretty well with his overall facial structure and works well with the amount of forehead that he actually has. Versions of that would be to wear it shorter, to the point where you get a buzz or blur, and so take it down to scalp. That would be the most extreme. So look at military-inspired haircuts if you have a tall forehead and you want to celebrate that. So those are my 5 picks for the guy who has a predominant forehead, ways that you can rock your hair, whether you choose to cover it up or whether you choose to celebrate it. So why don't you comment below and tell us what you prefer of these 5 choices. Do you have a favorite, and how do you wear your hair if you have a tall forehead? So until we meet again, beard on.
Thanks for watching this video. Beardbrand has launched a private community called The Alliance. It's for men who are looking to invest in themselves and who are looking to keep on growing. Click the link over there and come join us, or stick around and watch some more awesome videos.